Welcome to Share Talk, the only podcast where investors come first.
Hello and welcome to Share Talk. Today I'm joined by Colin Bird, who's Executive Chairman at Xtract Resources. How are you today, Colin?
I am very good, Zach, and how are you?
I'm doing well. You've had some good news today, or significant news. Could you run us through that, please?
Yeah, significant is a good word. End of the phase one drilling program. Finished it very nicely and very strongly. As you will see, the mineralisation started at around about 270 metres, finished around about 950 metres, with the usual sweet spot of about 300 odd metres. Somewhere in the middle there, I think it was about 580, and went on for 300 odd metres. So what have we seen? We've seen the typical porphyry pattern, and I'm so happy that it's repeating itself. That's conformity. There's no one porphyry, everyone's unique. But there's a pattern, and boy, is this conforming to the pattern. And so we get the same sequence of rocks as you would expect in a porphyry in Arizona, there's a porphyry in Canada, there's a porphyry in Ecuador, similar type rocks, similar type sequence, base metals at the outside, going into that feldspathic center, which is quartz veins, and a lot of chalcopyrite. So, yes, it's a nice way to finish phase one. It's a long stretch of mineralization, and it's a good stretch of the feldspathic higher grade material. So that phase is now finished, phase one. And as I've said to you before, we're science tech's over now. We're creating the 3D model. We're putting all the lithology, we're putting all the mineralization, we're putting all the quirks and idiosyncrasies that we've found so that we can interpret and plot. And of course, as we're also bang in the middle of a month-long geophysics program. And folks have said to me, and I've seen on a bulletin board, I thought, you started with geophysics, and didn't get this far down the program. But the geophysics we're using is top of the art. Somebody asked how far they can go. They can go about 1,500 meters. And somebody also asked on the bulletin boards, how deep do these porphyries go? They go 1,500 meters sometimes as well. And so can our drill machine. So that's answered a few questions from the bulletin boards. We're busy modelling and getting ready for phase two, which will be a sizable drilling program, aiming towards more tons. And of course, with more tons with more grade, and with more tons and more grade, more copper. And more copper getting towards that buyout trigger, which is very important to the company.
Clearly, with Chile closing its borders, the situation with copper is in everybody's minds at the moment. How far or how near are you from mining any of that stuff yourself?
Well, what I've made a practice of doing, Zach, big or small, is all the time testing. Where are you? If you hit the skids tomorrow with this project, or any project for that matter I'm involved in, will it make it? And we've done, I don't know if you're familiar with a program called Whittle 4D or Whittle program. What it does, it does geostats, it does geological modeling, but you also introduce finance concepts into it. And at the end of the day, it gives you a very broad, to be defined feeling of what you've got. And so we've fed some of the early information, and it looks like you could, down to about 600 or 700, design quite a nice open pit. And we've introduced the parameters that we know for capital, the parameters that we know for direct operating cost. And quite frankly, Zach, if it all ended tomorrow, I think we've got a mine. I'm pretty sure we have. But of course, it's not going to end tomorrow. With results like we've got, we're just doing the modelling for interest's sake to see how the ore body stands up. We're doing the geophysics. On this hole, for example, I told the listeners, and on an interview, I think 2 interviews ago, that this was going oblique, and it may be about 350, 400 even, before we get anywhere near the actual outer margins of the porphyry. And lo and behold, 45 we hit a little bit, and but at 270 there we were again. So this is a whopping great system, and we're getting to understand it more and more. But the geophysics is going to the geophysics is going to tell us Racecourse is one porphyry, but we're in a porphyritic system. It's district, not isolated, and that at the conclusion of the next exercise, hopefully we'll be near that magical 2 million tons and achieved it, and we will have discovered the presence of several other porphyries.
So at the moment you're heading for a situation where you would have a decent mine as things stand. Also, you would be heading for the 2 million tons as well. You will put the program in place to discover more resource over the coming weeks and maybe months.
There's no words to answer that. You've summed it up perfectly. That's exactly the situation the company's in. It has a backstop, which is great. It's looking quite very promising in terms of what you could build from what you've got now. It's open-ended. We've yet to find the bottom. We've yet to find the width. We've yet to find which is stronger, east or west, or are they the same? And we've got to find out whether there's more porphyries. So you couldn't be, I've spent my life trying to ensure optionality. And so if that's your goal and that's your mission, this Bushranger project, that's what we've got stacks of optionality. Our shareholders have got stacks of optionality.
And this would be an open pit, is that right, as you said?
Well, of course, the deepest pit in the world is Palabor, and that goes down to 1,000 meters. But, when we first came across this project, some were of the opinion that it was, this tilted porphyry was bad news. To me, it was excellent news, because it wasn't gaining depth as rapidly as a vertical porphyry might. So it lies on its side. So I could conceptualize, and that's what I am doing at the moment, conceptualizing an open pit and then accessing the main porphyry system, Xtract pit, with the primary roads to actually bring the ore out, and then probably a vertical shaft which takes you to the bottom of materials and men. Or in actual fact, it could be vice versa. So in actual fact, I'm intrigued by the fact that porphyry lies on its side at around about 10, 15 degrees, and it could be very beneficial to us, Zach, in developing. These porphyries are great, but they're capital front-end loaded, which means you've got to get to the bottom, you've got to develop all your arterials, and so you spend a stack of money. You've got to build, obviously, your concentrators and all your processing equipment and workshops and everything. So they're very heavily front-end loaded, whereas I could see, in actual fact, with this porphyry, the opportunity for a large open pit, and when I say large, I mean large, open pit, which would access the deep porphyry in 15 years' time or 20 years' time. So, it's not something quick and nasty, and it would be something big and insignificant. But suffice it to say, Zach, we don't sit there just hoping that we're going to get the big one, just hoping that somebody comes along and buys us next week. We're in actual fact doing the responsible engineering concurrently as we look for more and more. So I, for one, feel as though our shareholders are in a good place.
And so the completion of phase one today, or just now, what is the time frame maybe on phase two?
Well, I'm going gangbusters on, as I said, the geophysics program is going to take a month. We're already 1 week into it. That's not the death of 1,000 lashes. Got to be careful. You do get indications on a day-to-day basis, but until you put the full data set together, you shouldn't. It'd be very dangerous of me to go jumping into conclusions. But one sees the signatures, and when you've corrected the noise, we're building this program as we go along. The model is being built up now. Our modeler is very pleased with himself. He thinks he's cracked the parts of the intrusive, so he's already feeling pretty happy. Obviously, as the assay results come in, they've got to be very carefully plotted into the 3D model, and we'll show grade contours. And not every bit of mineralisation is going to be fake mineralisation. To assume that would be misleading you, would be misleading our shareholders. But we'll plot all the mineralisation. We'll establish a sensible cutoff, which can endure the ups and downs of the copper market, and then we'll develop our targets from there. But I'm pretty excited about what the geophysics is going to show us, Zach. But, because, for example, you'd expect you get the various colours, your blues, your yellows, your pinks, and you'd expect the real hot spot to be X marks the spot. We'll fire an all into that. Well, in actual fact, that's not the case. because that generally indicates the pyrite on an IP, and the pyrite is not copper bearing. And knowing how we have the layers, which all our shareholders understand now, the various layers, we identify that very high-grade pyrite. We drill inside that because we know that as the pyrite decreases to a certain level of, say, 3-5%, it's very likely that the chalcopyrite will increase. So it's not just fire into the guts of geophysics. Again, it's basically modeling over the top of where we've got our signature, modeling over the top of where we've got our mineralisation and our variations in grade, and looking at the colours, and that will assist very much firing out into space, missing it all together, firing into the pyrite and be totally disappointed and thinking, crikey, that was a good signature we've got, where's the metal? But we know now that's pyrite, and we need to be within the core, further within the core. All that discussion, debate going on internally within Xtract Australia and Xtract UK.
Well, we look forward to further developments. Colin Bird, Executive Chairman at Xtract Resources, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Zach. Very nice to be able to update you, and I'm so glad to update you with a good result at the end of phase 1.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Remember to visit our website for more news and other podcasts at www.share-talk.com.